All right. Well, welcome everybody. So you know how you have a class all semester long, and then you have a study session at the end of the semester before the final exam. You guys still do that, or is it more like undergrad? You still have classes where they'll have like a study session. So this is what this is. So we've been all year long. We've been going over different parts of the Bhagavad Gita, different themes, if you will, of a spiritualist journey, right? And so today is the last session in terms of a discussion. And today is what have we learned day. So if you didn't come at all for all semester, but you come today, you'll do well in the exam. So that was me in college. Like I wouldn't go to class, but I'd show up at the study session at the end, and then everybody would be mad at me because I passed the class. So anyway, so we'll do a little bit of review, and then really what I want to dive into today, which is our topic, which is accepting the guardianship of Krishna. So what do you guys think? That title is interesting, right? So like those words don't just like flow off, your tongue. The secret of accepting the guardianship of the Supreme to live our best life, right? That's the title. So what do you think that's also, what could we replace maybe guardianship? What am I trying to say with this title? Do you think?
Mentor,
Hmm?
having a mentor,
Okay.
faith.
Faith? Yes. Surrendering. Yes. So this is a different way of saying surrender. But if I would have said surrender, you would have, what kind of images would you guys come up with in your head?
Jail.
Jail, surrender, right? It's almost a negative connotation, surrender, especially when it relates to like our hyper active Western civilization, and especially when it relates to business or something like that. It's almost like a weakness, right? But what we're really trying to say when we say surrender in the Vedic scriptures is we're saying, hey, we want Krishna and I to be aligned in what we're trying to accomplish. So if he provides that protection, that guardianship, now that's something that we're kind of interested in, right? It's an insurance policy if I do something wrong, basically. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So if we can kind of summarize the Bhagavad Gita, the essence of what we've been studying for the last 2 semesters, since we started back in August, if you remember, till now. What do you think are like maybe 2, 3, 4 essence of the Bhagavad Gita that we've been studying?
The very first would be to realize that we are not this body, we are a soul.
Okay, so number one, Babesh said, we are not this body, we are the soul. Absolutely. Okay. Yes.
So I know the last part of the Bhagavad Gita where Shri Krishna says that no matter you have done the good or you have done the bad, but the moment you come to me and you surrender yourself, all the sins would be forgiven. And I'll
Perfect.
take care of you.
Yes. That's the essence. That's the main one. Yep. Okay, so let's go through this. So Bhavesh got the first one, right? To find out who we are, right? And then the second piece, we want to find out who God is. That's what Krishna basically says. Okay, hey Arjun, you're freaking out about going to war. So let's stop and really figure out what are some of your concerns? And are those concerns aligned with who you truly are, right? So he defines it. That's the way he goes about doing it. Then he talks about who he is, who God is, what are some of the characteristics of God, and why that's important. And then the third piece is how do we align those two? Oftentimes we call it dharma. What's our swadharma? What our swadharma is when we align our desires or our actions in this lifetime with that of what Krishna wants us to do. Okay, so that's a third. And then the fourth and the most important one is surrender to Krishna, and what we're going to talk about today. Okay, it's that surrendering process. So let's talk about that a little bit. So Arjun had this crisis, right? And it was so beautiful when Romapad Maharaj was here. He talked about our Arjun moments, right? Or Arjun's crisis or Arjun's moments, I think he called it. And so the Gita is literally a metaphor for our life. Okay, the battlefield is replaced with our life. It could be the classroom, it could be a corporate room, it could be whatever, right? So it's a metaphor. And the crisis that Arjun had, we also have those crises. We're not sure what decisions to make. We're not sure how to interpret the information that's coming at us, right? So, but Arjun was very capable. He was very qualified to be a warrior, right? Just like you guys are. You're qualified graduate students in your respective fields. Ross and I are, and people who are working, we're experts in our fields, if you will. We're plenty qualified. But still, of all that education that we have, we still get befuddled sometimes by the world and some of the decisions that we have to take on. Or, let's put it another way, sometimes we can't make head or tails of some challenges that come our way, right? When we have unexpected obstacles, when we've done everything right, but we're still faced with a challenge that, first of all, we feel it's unjustified. That's the first thing we say. It's like, why? I did everything right, right? How many of you guys had that experience? Yeah? Okay. So that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about how to gallantly, with confidence, be able to handle the challenges that come our way that are unexpected in our lives, and how to do it with confidence. And really, how should we interpret some of those challenges that come our way? So I'm going to share a little story. I don't think it's in here right now, but Parikshit Maharaj. How many of you guys are familiar with the story of Parikshit Maharaj? You guys are. All of you guys are. Okay, so there's two stories to Parikshit Maharaj. The latter one, I think a lot of us may know, but the first one was prior to him being born, right? I don't know if you guys know this, but so what was his mother's name? Uttara, yeah. So she was pregnant with Parikshit Maharaj, and basically what happened is Krishna ended up saving him from a bad guy because he was in the womb, and the person threw a weapon that would have obviously killed his mother, but more importantly, would have killed him as well. So his mother, being a pure devotee, she turned to Krishna and said, Krishna, can you please, not for me, I don't care what happens to me, but for the baby, can you help? And so she turned, as a pure devotee, we turned to Krishna. That's the theme of our talk today is, if we rely on Krishna, if we understand he's truly our guardian, a devotee always goes to Krishna first in a time of crisis. So she is a representative going to Krishna, right? So what did Krishna do? He stopped it. So he saved Parikshit Maharaj in the womb, if you will, of his mother. And so that's the story of Parikshit Maharaj. He was saved. So you think that's a boom, right? That's a great thing that happened. Absolutely. So the more famous story of Parikshit Maharaj is what? You guys know?
Yeah, cursed to die in 7 days.
Okay, so basically the story of Parikshit Maharaj is what really necessitated this book, right? Became famous for it. And here's what happened. So Parikshit Maharaj was a king, a very gallant king. People respected him. He was a devotee of the Lord, really a good, pious person. And so, as kings do, they go hunt. And so he went hunting in the forest, and obviously he got, he was tired, and he was really thirsty. And so he saw a hermit's abode, and he went in there, and he's like, can I get some water? And proper courtesy, somebody comes to your home, doesn't matter if it's your friend or foe, you offer them a good place to sit and some water at least, doesn't matter if you're poor. So he asked the sage there, can I get some water? And the sage didn't reply. Parikshit Maharaj, even though he's a devotee, he was really thirsty, and he got annoyed that the sage wasn't even paying attention to him. So out of anger, Parikshit Maharaj uncharacteristically picked up there was a dead snake, and he put it around the sage's neck as a garland, if you will, because he was He was just upset that he didn't greet him properly. And he left. But he didn't realize the sage was in a deep trance, and he just didn't recognize that the king had come to his hermitage, and he was fond of Parikshit Maharaj, and he would have cared for him well, but he was in a trance. So no one knew that story. So basically, when the son of the sage found out that this is what happened, the son was also very powerful sage, but he was a little immature. And so basically what he did, he's cursed Parikshit Maharaj to die within 7 days for the great offense that he perceived he caused his father. So the story goes that, so that curse, Parikshit Maharaj found out that was a curse, and then he realizes, like, oh my God, I lost my temper. I did do that, and I'm going to accept my punishment, which is I'm going to die in 7 days, right? So Parikshit Maharaj says, okay, what should I do now that I know I'm going to die in 7 days? So he did, he basically absolved himself of his responsibilities, left his family attachment, and went to the Ganges to meditate. And that's where Sukadev Goswami came. And he asked him, he goes, I'm so happy that you came. And there were so many sages. What should I do? I'm about to die. I've got this curse. And he goes, what you should do is hear from me what is going to happen to us, or learn about the science of Krishna, who Krishna is, how we should deal with him, and then how should we prepare for death. Okay? So he surrendered to the will of Krishna right at the end. And that surrendering of that will is what propelled him into going into the spiritual world, right? So why are we telling this story? Surrendering to Krishna doesn't start at the point of death or when we find out, because we may not find out. Parikshit Maharaj actually was fortunate. He found out he had 7 days till he died, so he can actually do something about it. How many of you guys know when you guys are going to die?
You have your hand up.
We don't, right? We do not know when we're going to die. And so the purpose of life is to be prepared for that inevitability, right? We're all going to go there, right? It's a morbid thought, but I don't want to dwell too much on it. But when you start to think about like your life and more importantly, your death, you get a sense of urgency sometimes. If I knew I was dying in 7 days, I'm like, okay, I got to get my affairs together. I got to do what's right. But I wouldn't be so concerned about my affairs here in the material world. I'd be concerned about what's going to happen to me in the spiritual world, right? What happens to me after I die. And so that is why the Bhagavad Gita is such an important text, is because there's two things that are done, is what to do and how to live our lives, and then also what to do when we are going to pass away, how to handle that passing, and also how to live, right? So surrendering to Krishna is a process where it's an active process. It's not something passive, if you will. And we're going to get into the active part of it. It's also when you have Krishna as your guardian, when you're faced with some calamities, instead of becoming anxious, you know you can trust Krishna because he has your best case in mind, right? And so I wanted to share with you, just last week, what happened is on a Saturday, I got an email from our CEO saying, business is in trouble. We might go under. And if you know anybody who can buy our business, let us know. I was like, wow. I was anxious. Well, I was scared, fearful, right? Those are how else would you deal with that information, right? So I was a little frustrated. I was probably annoyed at Russ. I was snapping all weekend, and something really amazing happened. Is I had a really, really good round of chanting in the morning. like really good challenge. And during that, I don't know if it was a realization you should have done that, but it was a reflection. And the reflection was, you're going to give this talk on Friday next week about surrendering. And one of the part of surrendering and having Krishna as your guardian is not to be fearful, because you trust Krishna to care for you, whether that perceived thing that's happening to you is good or bad. And if you have that confidence, if you truly trust him, then you have to trust that this is all for the good. So that realization really like just got me ready for this call, this presentation today. And really helped me to understand and put it in perspective what may or may not happen with our company. So it didn't change. Our company is in financial trouble. There's no doubt. And a company that buys us may or may not want me. That's just reality of the situation. However, the way I approach this, it makes all the difference in the world for me, right? I have to understand that if the company gets bought and they retain me and they give me a raise, great. I didn't do anything. It's Krishna's arrangement. If some company buys us and it doesn't work and they get rid of me, that's okay too, because Krishna's probably got a different chapter that he wants me to start in my life. How exciting would it be for me to start a new career now? At a very experienced, I've got so much experience. I'm really good at what I do. So who knows? Maybe Krishna's got something really wonderful right around the corner or something, right? But the point is, it doesn't really matter. It could be that it's time for me to retire.
Nope.
Nope. Rasa said no. So anyway, the point is, diving into my devotional service really taught me that, hey, listen, I have to live by this. And do I truly believe it or do I not truly believe it? And Krishna will test us from time to time when those things happen. Some of you guys are ready to graduate. Some of you guys, right? And some of you guys have jobs, which is great. And some of you guys are still looking for jobs. And some of you guys have been looking for jobs for a little bit. And it's a scary, scary time. And Karthik did a great job last week of saying, hey, just do your best. And whatever happens, happens. Like, what else can you do, right? And it's the right mind frame, right? And so what we want to get into is actually, what if Krishna is doing this on purpose to you, Bhavesh? What if he's doing this on purpose? You're like, well, why would he do something to put us in anxiety? Well, I don't know Krishna that well to be able to say, well, he knows what's best for me. And that's what we're going to get into, okay? So Krishna is our guardian. So the charioteer that he was, right? He was a charioteer for Krishna, represents the Paramatma inside of us. Okay, that's a metaphor for Paramatma. And he's our personal guide. And as he's seated in our hearts, he knows us better than we know ourselves. That's the first thing that you have to know, is Krishna actually knows us better than ourselves. Why? We can get really technical about this. Basically is, you don't remember your last lifetime? Krishna remembers all of our last lifetimes. He knows exactly what your skills are. He knows exactly what your karma is. And he knows exactly what you got to understand in this lifetime. Yeah? And that unique nature of yours, when you start aligning with Krishna, he'll start speaking to you. He'll start revealing to you through different means of what your real goal, what your real dharma is, that's aligned with him and what he wants you to do. And that's when you start to live a real powerful, impactful life, is when and I think we talked about this, when we align ourselves with Krishna. So in Bhagavad Gita 15:15, I'm seated in everyone's heart, and from me comes remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. So that's Krishna in our hearts, right? And so if we can tap into that Paramatma feature of Krishna in our hearts, we'll know what he's trying to communicate to us by maybe potentially me losing my job. Or maybe making it harder for you to find a job. What is that? Because when things are going good, it's easy to say, oh my God, Krishna, thank you so much. Appreciate it. It's great salary. Good. Right? But it's in these hard situations is when we have to figure out, do we really truly have faith? And do we really believe Krishna's got our best interests in mind? Even if on the surface, it's very awkward and it doesn't look right. That's the test. Yeah? So Dharma and guardianship. So Krishna, this is how he wants us to live our lives. We have our own idea, right? How we want to do it. You just have to understand that you're not alone in this fight. That's the first thing that you can take away, is you have Krishna to help you, guide you through your life. And by trusting him, you start to realize what your dharma is. So no longer are you searching to do something that's not innately your nature, right? So the Bhagavad Gita verse that says it's better to do your duties not so well than to do somebody else's well, right? Okay, so practical acceptance of Krishna's guardianship. So how do we do this? How do we accept Krishna? Just on his word? On the scriptures? So there's two things that have to go in. You have to understand who Krishna is, who you are, and what that relationship constitutes, right? We talked about that. That's the Bhagavad Gita summarized, right? And the next thing you have to ask is, okay, so this guardianship to Krishna, if I want to say, okay, Krishna, be my protector. Okay, well, how do we do that? So one, we read the scriptures and trust what the scriptures say. Okay. Two is when you start to feel the reciprocation, right? If you're trying to have a relationship with me, Rishabh, and it's one way, do you really think our relationship that's that strong? No. But if you're trying to have a relationship with me and I communicate, like I answer your texts, we have conversations, then do you have less or more faith in our relationship? Obviously more, right? Yeah. So the second half of the equation is Krishna starts to communicate with you. And we had a session on that actually. How? Through different devotees, right? Different circumstances in our lives. And so how do we tap into that? It's through devotional service, right? You guys, we were studying Bhagavad Gita, and how we tap into that communication is through devotional service. So how do we completely surrender and give our lives and have that trust that Krishna is going to be there for us? It's through devotional service. Okay? The more we can practically apply this devotional service, the better in tune we are going to be with Krishna and what he wants, number one. Number two, when we face a life's obstacle, we'll be able to figure out what exactly is the meaning here. What is it that I'm supposed to do? But more importantly, what is Krishna telling me? And thereby you'll be able to make better decisions that are aligned with what Krishna wants for you, that's good for you. Yeah? So one of the ways to do this is your daily sadhana. How many of you guys heard of sadhana, right? Your daily practice is devotional services, right? So it could be one, all, or some. So we've had a year, we're talking about Bhagavad Gita. So intellectually, we get it, right? You guys get the Bhagavad Gita, what Krishna's message is intellectually. So what's left? Practice. So the more you practice, the more you get aligned with what your dharma is, what Krishna wants. The more Krishna commits to be your guardian. Yeah? So we have a role in this. And as soon as we start on that role, Krishna does most of the heavy lifting because he's going to start to reveal himself through mercy, right? So some examples. These are examples. There's more to this. There's 9 processes of devotional service. We covered that one time, but prayer, meditation, or chanting mantra every morning. You can do that. So Keshava Maharaj has this beautiful thing, and he says, so we're a spirit soul, right? We learned that. And there's this material world. We have this body, which is material. So a morning practice, I'm not going to ask you to do this. He wants you to, he wants everybody to join his 5 a.m. club. I don't think we can join 5 a.m. club. But the point he tries to make is that 5 o'clock in the morning, or at the temple, it starts at 4:30 with Manga Arati. The reason that's there, and you spend about, 2 hours roughly in japa for that time period. First of all, the timing is really conducive to spiritual practice. But what Keshava Maharaj said, it was pretty interesting. He says, every day, that's to remind me I'm a spirit soul and I'm not this body. Because the rest of the 22 hours, I'm constantly reminding myself I'm the body. Right? So think about that for a second. If we're a spirit soul, but constantly we're in this world, the world is constantly telling us to take care of things related to this body in this material world. So that morning practice, that sadhana is so important because it helps us to remind us of this very important but fundamental piece, which that we're a spirit soul. So it just reinforces it. Yeah, makes sense? So our daily sadhana helps to reinforce the fact and to remind us that we're the spirit soul. Why? Because of this practice, we're connected with Krishna, who's also spiritual. Okay, hearing a lecture, reading a verse a day. You can incorporate that right now. You guys have spent, I don't know how many Fridays over this last year, right? Of coming here, understanding it. Now you graduated, both probably from this school and probably from VVS in 2025, right? These are things you can incorporate right away, tomorrow. Read one verse of the Bhagavad Gita as it is. Most of you guys have that. If you don't have it, we'll give it to you. Read one verse with Prabhupada's purport. One take. Probably take you what, 5 minutes? Okay. It'll help you to recognize what your Dharma is. Kirtan. If you guys like Kirtan, hear that. Or any other form of devotion service that you can incorporate. The key word is daily, if you can do it. The quantity is up to you guys. You guys can work up to that. But if you intellectually believe what the Bhagavad Gita, what Krishna is saying in the Bhagavad Gita, right? And since you stuck around for this many Fridays, I think there's a natural inclination for you guys. Not even it's natural inclination. What if I told you actually Krishna guided you here? You didn't come here. The super soul inside your heart brought you here. Okay? What if that same super soul can help you start a sadhana practice every morning? Just do one of these things, right? A simple prayer to recognize that, hey, okay, what are we trying to remind ourselves of? We're a spirit soul. We're a spirit soul. That's what that morning spiritual practice does for us. It constantly reminds us of that. Okay? Once we start on our daily practices, then this is what starts to happen, guys. It's a miracle. And I'm not making this stuff up. I'm using these words on purpose. Words like miracle, tapping into Krishna, right? Because if that didn't really happen, if Rishabh and I didn't really reciprocate in our relationship, and Rishabh kept calling me and I never answered his text, what would happen?
Relationship would sour, and it would be a bad relationship.
I know, but what would you do? What would your action be?
I would not like you.
You would not like me, but you would stop texting me.
Yeah.
Right? You would stop texting me. So why do people continue to chant for 50 years? Why are they so happy doing devotional service? You guys ask yourself that question. Why?
Reciprocation.
What's that?
Reciprocation.
There's reciprocation. No doubt. 100%. Okay. So if there's reciprocation with God, and he can actually align you so you can live the most fulfilled life you can possibly, what's left?
Start.
Yeah. Intellectually, you guys are so smart. You guys are so capable. Okay? Just like the people that are working, we're capable. We need Krishna's guardianship when we absolutely face these challenges in life and we can't make heads or tails out of them. It helps us to get through. Okay? It helps us connect with Krishna. Okay. And the beautiful part is once we start doing our daily devotional service practice, Krishna starts to instill that faith in us that we need. And so then it's just, you heard of the term snowball going downhill, picks up speed, picks up momentum and all that. That's what happens. Okay. And then we've got to get away from this mentality that we're by ourselves, right? Got to get away from that. So guys, we can break this down into just two things very simply. Have you heard of there's an old Native American philosophy, which is, which wolf are you going to feed? We all have the good wolf and the bad wolf inside of us. And who we become as people, it depends on which wolf we fed. It's just a very simple philosophy, right? So if we're going to engage in caring for our body 22 hours a day, if we could just care for our spiritual body, just a small smidgen. And Krishna promises us, if you do that, and you stack number of days, number of months, number of years together, you'll become that good wolf, if you will. You'll live that dharma. You'll become the person you are meant to become. And start arbitrarily trying to be the person that society maybe wants you to become, or what you've concocted in your head that you need to come, right? That's why sometimes there's friction in a direction we want to go, and nature is telling us this is not the way to go. We keep pushing. You could, or you can go with the flow, right? Instead of going upstream, you can align yourself with the stream. It's another way of looking at it. Okay? Okay. So we want to reframe life struggle as part of our journey, right? Struggle doesn't necessarily mean you're off path, but Krishna kind of like guides you back into alignment. Because that's another way to look at, perhaps that's what Krishna is redirecting us. So Karthik's talk last week was do your best and leave everything else to Krishna because you don't control it. Here, what we're going to talk about is we're going to build on that to say, okay, and at the end, we're going to talk about what we can actively do to try to figure out what Krishna really wants, right? So another component that is hard for when you start on your spiritual journey, it was hard for me, because we're so like programmed to think that, hey, if I take up God, there's something in it for me, right? Quid pro quo. That's how this whole society works, right? If I do this, I get that, right? And so if I start on this journey, how come I've got these obstacles? I thought I was supposed to, well, I'm going to tell you right now, if you do practice your devotional service, your challenges necessarily will not go away, okay? But you'll know how to handle them properly. That's the goal. How you can handle with clarity, courage, and, Rasa used a great picture there, Prahlad Maharaj, right? So Prahlad Maharaj was like a wonderful devotee of the Lord, but he went through every calamity you can think of. How about the Pandavas, right? How about the Pandavas? How much distress did they go through, right? But they had Krishna right there in physical form, helping them all the way along to say, this is how I want you to do it. This is how you should interpret this. Continue on your path. Continue on your path. Live out your dharma, because I've got to do something here, and you guys are my instruments to get it done, type of thing, right? So we're still going to face challenges as we start on our spiritual journey, especially when we start to practice. But you will get that innate sense of how to traverse those things. The more you do it, the better you get. Okay. All right. So let's talk about this. And if you guys can share, that'd be great. What would you change in your life if you truly accepted Krishna as your guardian? Interesting, huh? What would change in your life? If you truly had a guardian that had your best interest in mind, he knew you better than you knew yourself. You don't even have to say anything. He knows what you're thinking. What would that do? Yes.
Life would become a little easier and lighter.
How so?
Because you know someone truly knows you and they really genuinely care for you and they're here to help you out.
Okay, good. All right. Yes.
Isn't he always?
Huh?
Isn't he always
Isn't he always?
with us?
Yes, but but it's us understanding that he's there with us. He is always there with us. But the problem is we forget he's there with us. So if you knew he was there with you, how would that change your life? Yes.
Treat every other person as if Krishna is there in that person.
Beautiful. It changes your perspective on how you view other people and how you treat other people. Okay, great. Anybody else? Yes.
Well, I don't. If that happens, I don't think there'd be any room for us to be frustrated, angry, or just tormented with everything and anything.
Why?
Well, it sort of adds to what she said. It forms a safety net, an invisible safety net around you.
Yeah.
So it's like when you're a kid and you always know that you got your parents on your back, irrespective of what you do. Like, are they going to save me? I'm not saying it's not the case right now, but it's a little different when you grow old. But with that happening, it gives you a lot of confidence to get into anything that you want to get into.
Exactly. So the talk of what was the title? It was accepting Krishna as our guardian so we can live our best life, right? And so it's the same concept. I'm glad you brought that up. That's a great analogy to think of parents and children relationship. As when we're children, we're confident that our guardians are going to know what's best for us. So even when they tell us to go to bed at 8 o'clock, we may whine a little bit. At the end of the day, we know it's in best. You know, as we get older, we're like, yeah, of course, they know what's best for us. They want to make sure we can get up early and go to school, right? So it's that confidence comes from the fact that this person, this guardian, has your best interest in mind at all times, even if the circumstances you don't like so much sometimes. But the confidence comes from, oh, this is interesting. Wow, I might have to change jobs. This is interesting. I wonder what's right around the corner. Yes.
This practice helped me to become fearless and act without the past impression, because in what happens in our life, if we have some bad experience, we are generally inclined to make the new decision based on past impression. So it helped me to worry free and anxiety free. And in the last slokas, it means that whenever there is a Sri Krishna, the Lord of all yoga, and where there is a Arjun, the supreme archer, there will be also the certainty. There certainly the unending affluence, victory, and prosperity and righteousness. So my point is, Lord Krishna is our well-wisher and Arjuna is like a karma yogi, like all of us. So I was assuming like that I am a worshipper and I am just doing my act. So this helped me to take action fearlessly.
Beautiful. Yeah, absolutely. You become fearless because you have somebody on your side. The reason Bhavesh and Herschel are fearless when they're stomping the streets together, arm in arm, because they know they're two. You know, Bhavesh is not strong, but Herschel's strong, right? Prakar's strong, right? Right? It's when you have your team, right? So it makes you fearless. It makes you stronger because you're not alone. Yeah? Oh, Rusty, what happened?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Anybody else? Yes.
Your anxiety and stress obviously go down, and you're able to move through the challenges of life with more objectivity and less, emotional response, because you know that you trust that everything is happening to you for a good reason, that there's, a lesson to be learned that's going to improve you as a person, but also improve you spiritually and bring you closer to Krishna. And that, challenges are there so that we can come closer to him and rely on him more.
Yeah. So the anxiety less, when you lose that sense of anxiety, you become free, right? Because sometimes we make decisions that are not so, if we're tense, if we have stress, we don't make our best decisions. Think about it. You make your best decision when you're carefree. And carefree comes from security. Carefreeness, at least, right?
You don't make decisions out of fear.
Out of fear, yeah. You don't make decisions. You make decisions knowing that your confidence in what you're doing, right? It's no longer fear-based decisions anymore. Yes.
I was just reading in S.B. Keshav Maharaj's Tattva book. He shared a friend that he had, and that friend had like terminal cancer. But even throughout that process, he was still excited about whatever journey awaited him. Like he still had a smile on his face. He still kept thinking, how can I continue serving my community? Or, if anyone would ask him for any help without even thinking about his condition, he would just be like, yes. And even when going into hospital for treatments, not knowing whether he would come out or not, he'd be like, I'm excited. Let's see where this goes, So just kind of like, I guess that was the closest example I've kind of read or heard of this kind of, mentality in it.
Yeah, no, that's beautiful. I've heard that. Thank you for sharing that. It's so now let's really look at the 20,000 foot view, because Girish brought us to it. So remember what Krishna says? You get the body, whatever your desires are at the end of your life is where you end up taking birth in the next life, right? And then what else is the other verse? I'm good at paraphrasing. I'm not good at Sanskrit. The other verse is, if you remember me, you think of me at the time of death, you sure will come to me. Right, Girish? So now let's stack up these days of our sadhana. And you keep stacking them. And you keep stacking them. And then you're like, oh, I thought I felt something. Did you hear that? No, I didn't hear that. Oh, that was Krishna? I don't know if that was Krishna. You go through that phase. And then you go through, you're like, of course that was Krishna. Oh my God, that was Krishna. Right? And then you come to a phase and it's like, oh my God, I can't wait to be physically with Krishna. Okay, then the moment of death arrives on our doorstep. What's that person I just described? What's their mindset? Versus a person who didn't do any of that. Fearless in death. The ultimate anxiety, the ultimate obstacle, the ultimate challenge in our lives. We're all young, right? At least you guys are. So we don't think that far ahead. Like what's going to happen? But when you start reading the scriptures a little bit more detail, all this is a preparation for what and how we feel at the moment of death. And how it's described is it's such a tumultuous time that if we don't have in our mindset and in our hearts completely that we're Krishna's, part and parcel, we're not going to remember it. We can't fake it. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. You can't fake the final exam. Either you have it or you don't, right? And so this process helps you prepare for that, right? So the earlier we start, somebody asked Prabhupada, like, why are you constantly, why do you preach to like young people and not older people? There's other reasons, but it's like, listen, we're preparing ourselves to die, right? So the younger you can start, do you know when you're going to die? No, you don't know. So at that moment, when that moment comes, it's what is your consciousness at that moment? And your consciousness changes if you're devotionally involved and you have that relationship with Krishna. Then you almost, like, to your point, your story, you're almost looking forward to the next adventure. right? It's scary, right? Like death, everybody looks at it as like, oh my God, but everybody's going to go through it. No doubt, right? So isn't it better to be prepared for that piece? Okay, so this is a great point too. So did you guys ever hear the story about Prabhupada's? There was a reporter that asked him, say, this is great philosophy. I'm bought in. I love it. And I'm so happy you're sharing it with the West. It's really neat. But Swamiji, what if at the time of death, or when you die, you find out, oh my God, I had it all wrong. There is no Krishna. There is no spiritual world. I was completely wrong. I should enjoy my life more. Prabhupada says, yeah, you're right. But what if I'm right? Right? The point is, he goes, if I'm wrong, I lived a very happy life. I was around the most beautiful people, caring people, kind people that see God in almost, in everybody. These are the people I want to, like, I'm not, what's the right word? I can be myself with. I don't have to have my guards up. And I don't know, devotional service, I sang, I danced, ate good food. I did, my morning practice that actually, enlivened me. I felt like I was living the life I was meant to live. So if I'm wrong, still had a good life. But what if I'm right and you're wrong? Yeah, pretty powerful, right? So the point here is if we start our journey, not only are there going to be tangible benefits in our life to live out our dharma that we're supposed to, both material and our spiritual dharma, but it also prepares us for the ultimate test. The ultimate test. Because then you don't have to cram. You don't want to be me coming for the last class, for your final review. You're confident going in because you're like, oh, I know this the back of my hand. I've been studying this for 50 years. Yeah. Okay, we're going to end here. So it's not passive, right? That's the big takeaway. It is an active process. It's not by ritual. It's through love that we gain his shelter. So how do we show somebody we love them?
Actions.
Yeah, right? Want to spend time with them? Probably number one, right? Serve them maybe of what they want instead of what I want. Those types of things. So it's through love that we conquer Krishna, not necessarily through a ritual. A ritual may help us develop our love sometimes, right? But it's not the ritual, the essence is the love, right? Okay, regular practice deepens our connection to the divine. We talked about it nauseum, right? Divine is to those constantly devoted with love, I give understanding. So this is what we're talking about. This is Krishna talking about. So either we believe in this or we don't. Krishna says, believe in it intellectually, but don't trust it blindly. Practice it. And if you don't get any results, that's when you can stop. So there's two ways: intellectual study and reciprocation. Because you cannot have a relationship, a one-way relationship. You'll buy out. You'll bow out. Yeah? Okay. So that's our presentation today. And I wanted to read you something from Keshav Maharaj. And I did this, I just was reading this after the presentation was done. And so I didn't even get to put it in, but I wanted to put this in here. I just wanted to read a couple of things. Change is unstoppable, uncontrollable, and unpredictable. How do we navigate the course of life, especially when it's riddled with surprises beyond our control? Here are 3 dictums to help us. Okay, you ready? He's really good with this kind of stuff. Number one, adjust your expectation. So what that means is false expectations brings frustration. So if you think I'm meant to do this, you may have to adjust your expectation based on what Krishna is telling you. And you'll be able to read the tea leaves. Are you familiar with that term, tea leaves? Yeah. So contentment in life is not based on controlling the external world, but rather on conquering the inner world. Yeah? So that's adjust your expectations. Here's number two. Accept your situation. So we're building on what Karthik said. Do your best, leave it up to Krishna. Now there's three things that we're saying. Adjust your expectations to be able to handle challenging situations. If you have an obstacle in your way, it may be your expectation of what it is that you're supposed to do. Number two, accept your situation. So every external situation can create incredible internal growth. Properly digested experiences will nourish us with strength, wisdom, humility, and powerful insight. What's the key word? Experience? Digested, properly digested. I mean contemplation, right? And the best contemplation is done when? In the morning, during your spiritual practice. When you're connecting with Krishna, that's where those reflections, those realizations start to come. Yeah? Okay. The unexpected occurrences are part of a master plan to reconfigure our consciousness. Full stop. Okay. And then the third, so we got adjust our expectation, accept our situation. Third is aspire for connection. And this is my favorite. Amidst the unpredictable roller coaster of life, we need a permanent anchor. As we commit to spiritual practices and root ourselves in the transcendental reality, we learn to see all the challenges of our life on the backdrop of eternity. Basically, we start to see all these little things that happen to us from a higher perch, if you will, right? Come what may, success or failure, praise or blame, highs and lows, our spiritual status remains unharmed and untouched. This connection is known as yoga, a process that reconnects us to the spiritual reality. So the mantra can be as follows: adjust your expectation, accept your situation, and aspire for connection. Yeah? Any questions? So I just want to finish it up. Karthik said, do your best, leave it to Krishna. Now we're saying adjust, accept, and connect. Yeah? Those are tangible, practical things you can do if you truly want to be able to get over the inevitable challenges of life. Yes, Rich.
I don't know if it's a bit off topic, but just want to get your perspective. We're putting in these 2 hours in the morning or
Whatever.
for life, for spiritual practice, right?
Yeah.
And now we're caught up in all these other duties.
Yeah.
How do we not make it look like something like they're separate entities, you know? How do we kind of put it together? Like, how does one help the other in that sense? Like during that 22 hours now, how does that kind of come into play?
Oh,
if you
okay.
can share some insights.
Yeah, of course. So once we're constantly reminded, it's like this. If you work out for 2 hours a day, every single day, you're going to get stronger. So when you go out and do your job, say you have I don't know, whatever, you're doing a laborer's job or something. So before you know it, the same bricks that you were picking up becomes a little lighter to pick up as you get stronger, right? So same analogy can be applied. As we grow strength spiritually, we're able to see our material lives for what they truly are. You can differentiate between spirit and matter. Actually, that's the whole purpose. So we're spiritual beings connected to matter, right? And it's that interaction with spirit and material is literally the life, and be able to differentiate the two. So our spiritual practices give us the strength to be able to differentiate what's spiritual and what's material. So we may have to do things materially, but then we also know those material things are connected to Krishna to a certain extent. So you do your prescribed duties, but with your consciousness starts to change a little bit. So instead of being fully engrossed in the anxiety of what you're doing, you can understand this is just a part of what I'm supposed to be doing. Yeah.
I was just gonna add to what you said. I think it gives you, like, to add to the muscle,
Yeah.
it gives you the perspective that really this is not as important as I think it is. And that, I'm doing this as a service. So again, the stress and anxiety, I think, go down because it's almost like you become a third party. If you're like working really hard and you have, a lot of expectations and a lot of responsibilities put on you, you can either like sort of, get stressed out and sort of crumble under it and feel the weight of it, or you can move through it like, okay, this weight is actually not as heavy as I think. And, I have Krishna's protection. I'm doing this as my service. I'm just going to do the best I can and leave it up to him. So that weight kind of lessens. And when you're not operating, like you were saying, out of fear or out of, greed or something like that, then you're able to think, move through challenges a lot, with a lot more focus and a lot more clarity, so that you can actually perform better in the long run and also have a more balanced, sustainable life.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you. Very well said. Now, so just summarize what Rasa said is your spiritual practice will help you in your material life. There's no doubt about that. But the most important piece is it always will continue to remind you of what your true nature is, so you don't get engulfed in the reflections of the material world, like, the nice shining objects that we all run to. It keeps us grounded to know that, hey, I'm truly a spirit soul, and I know what my connection, I know what's really, truly important to me. And so, yeah, I mean, I can definitely tell you that having a spiritual practice really helps us understand who we are. And consequently, when we know who we are, we're confident in everything we do, right? We know our capabilities. Any other questions? Yes.
Well, predominantly when we spoke about reciprocal leaves, that is, it's a two-way street. The basic doubt that I have here is sometimes you give all that you can with your spiritual practice, and there is a possible chance that you may be off sync, the offset, not in tune with the particular frequency that you're supposed to be in, let's say spiritually, that is, of course. And that may also lead to a certain frustration, like I'm not seeing results, and you may be off tune. Do you say that there is a way that you adjust yourself to say that, you do this, and this is the channel that you have to expect or wait for reciprocalness, and once you're there, you're going to experience it, because you may be doing everything right, but you may be not listening in the right direction.
No, absolutely. So the beautiful part about it is we have our scriptures that helped us literally walk us step by step of how this spiritual journey works. And one of the key components is that's why it's so important to have mentors. You can call them gurus, you can call them mentors, whatever they are. They're people that are there to help you on your spiritual life. So they want to make sure that you're doing things properly, number one. They're doing it with the spiritual injunctions, right? So this is why in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says what? You're a spirit soul, Arjun, you're not listening. You're making excuses with your body, not your spirit, number one. Number two, I'm God. Number three, how to get connected with me is what? Karma yoga, jnana yoga, right? Mystic yoga, yeah, dana yoga, whatever, right? Right? But out of all these are all great. But in this day and age, if you just graduate to the other, Bhakti Yoga is the best. This is what works for you. And then if you read some more scriptures, they'll tell you why Bhakti Yoga is so important in this time and age. So if you're practicing meditation and not getting, so that's my point. If you're practicing meditation and not getting the results that you're looking for, it may be that you think you're doing the right practice, but it may not be conducive for time and circumstance. So that's why it's important to have that mentor helping you and guiding you. And then Krishna promises you. What does he say? If you surrender unto me, you will come to me. You will come to me. No doubt. There's no doubt. And then the other key point that you made there is, what are your results that you're looking for? Hold on a second. Adjust your expectations. That's a hard one. That's a hard one because we want results of a certain kind. And it just may be the results are different than what you're thinking. Great question, though.
On his question and on the verse that's there,
Yeah.
you said adjust your expectation, but it says constantly devoted with love. Does love have expectations?
Give understanding. Okay, so if I'm understanding you, Rishabh, you're saying adjust your expectations. What I meant that in the context of, hey, what is a spiritual practice supposed to yield in terms of results? Right? So somebody's expectation could be like, in India, a lot of the expectations are, hey, if I do a particular practice, I'll get a certain result, right? We create a different devatas to get different results, right? So in that context, I want to make sure that if you're truly pursuing spiritual life, that your expectations are that you're actually going to grow spiritually. And your expectations are not that I want something material. That was the context.
But is that love? Like, does love have expectations? Or is it like, I just do it because I want to give?
Okay, so really good question. So as we go through, so say we start our spiritual practice, there's steps, right? There's stages of spiritual realizations. And so when we're neophytes, our expectations and how we do our spiritual practices are different. And as we grow, we start to understand naturally what that love. So that love doesn't grow from day one. You're not in love with me just because you saw me, right? Like, no, that doesn't happen. All they say that love grows through this practice and that reciprocal nature, right? And so true love doesn't have expectations necessarily, right? True love, I'm here to serve you, and that's all I care about. Your happiness gives me happiness. So I'm not really expecting anything in return from you at all. Actually, when you go to the temple and you are in front of the deities, the Kishore Kishori, right? So, and this happens all the time, like, and even devotees, because it's so natural for us to have this give and take relationship in everything that we do. Even, like, oh my God, that Kirtan was so amazing, made me feel so good. Yeah. Or, man, we rarely sang for Krishna. I just wanted to please Krishna when we sang that Kirtan. Right? Or when we go in the morning and say, my God, Mangalarti, you're so sweet. It makes you feel so good in the morning to come here. Man, I'm so proud of myself. I'm here today. Or is it, oh my God, I'm so happy that I got to wake up Krishna. I hope Krishna's pleased that I'm here. Right? Does that answer your question? So true love doesn't have expectations. True love is about pleasing you. What makes you happy? Not me. Right? So our expectation of spiritual life, that's why I said, when you say, I don't see the results, what results are we looking for? Yeah. Yes.
It seems to me that there's a lot of conflicting terms to make it either easy to understand. For instance, you use the trusting at the beginning and then understanding at the end. Now, if I say 2 + 2 is 4,
Yes.
do I need to trust or to understand?
Okay. First, you need to understand intellectually that 2 + 2, what is the science behind the math, right? How do we get to 2 plus 2, right? So you have to understand it intellectually. So the point is, when you have, so intellectually, you have to understand what your relationship with Krishna. That's a 2 plus 2, okay? There's a second component of this, which is this arbitrary thing called connection and love, right? I can't grab love, right? It's not tangible. That's a reciprocal, like my relationship with you, it's hard to put in quantifiable terms sometimes, right? So there's 2 factors. It's the intellectual study, understanding it. Does this make sense? How were the cosmos created? Well, there's a very step-by-step definition of the Vedic philosophy of how this world was created, okay? But the second piece is that relationship, that Krishna is a person and how we create that relationship, which is a little intangible. That's that love. When we have love for even each other, there's intangible there. There's tangible in the sense that we know that person, we know their likes, we know their, who they are, whatever. But then there's also an intangible piece of it. So it's twofold. There's sentimentalism and also intellectualism in the relationship with Krishna. So fully to understand the relationship, you can't have one without the other. You got to intellectually understand it, or it becomes, or if it's all sentimental, it becomes fanaticism. Isn't that what the saying is? Right? So if it's all about like, I don't really care, I'm in, right? Krishna doesn't want you to do that either. He wants you to intellectually understand what he's saying. It's very systematic. Then, but you don't want to have it the other way, because if you only systematically want to understand him, you may understand him intellectually, but you'll never have that connection of love with him. You won't have bhakti, devotion.
He won't reveal himself.
He won't reveal himself, like Rasa said. The revelation, the reciprocal relationship the Rishabh wants with me only happens through that exchange of love. And that love is initiated by Rishabh because he starts to do the things that I like. And then I'm like, oh, now I'm going to do things he likes. Hopefully that answers your question. Any other questions? Okay, so what's the main takeaway from today? Just your expectations. No. That's not it.
I have no expectation.
I think the main takeaway from today would be is you have a very, very good friend of yours, very, very near you. And all you have to do is seek out his guardianship, and that guardianship will help you live your best life. And that guardianship can be had through spiritual practice of devotional service. Full stop. Okay? Very good.